Wow, what do you think about this? How would you like to live here? Wow, how would you like to spend your days there? Oh yes, I would be there. Oh my goodness, how beautiful is this area? Aren't these beautiful? Rolling hills, mountains. Look at these mountains back here in the back. Look at those mountains. Look at this train. Wow, that would kind of scare me. Is that not beautiful? This is called the Yukon. Back in the day, sometimes they still, I guess, call it the Yukon Territory. The Yukon is located in northwest Canada. It has an Arctic type of climate. It has a rough terrain, mountains and plateaus. And then this climate, the treeless ground or the tundra. Now you do see a lot of trees here because it's kind of down lower. But if you were to go up higher into the mountains, into the tundra area, you see this up here? No trees up there. It's permanently frozen. It can support only low growing vegetation. It can't support trees. Because of that rough terrain though, helicopters and light aircraft are used for the transportation to go to the different parts of the Yukon. But even still today, some people use dog sleds as their means of transportation. Huskies and Malamutes have double coats of fur to keep them warm in the severe cold. They can pull a sled all day if they're well fed and well cared for. Let's take a look at some words that we're going to run across today in our story. This first sentence says, the lowering sky was a warning of the approaching thunderstorm. What do you think that means? Lowering in that sentence means what? Like a storm's approaching, the lowering sky, the clouds are coming in. What about this one? The dog sled trail over the snow turned out to be the longest mush ever. What do you think that word means? It's like when they travel, it's when they go. With a dog sled. As Steve traveled over the tundra, he notices that there were no trees and that the ground was permanently frozen. Remember we just talked about the tundra, we saw pictures of it. The tundra is where the ground is permanently frozen and nothing can grow except little tiny bushes and maybe a few little flowers, things that just kind of grow close to the ground. The light brown tawny colored dog appeared to be the meanest. What do you think tawny means? Well, it kind of means like a brownish type color. He decided not to venture onto the thin ice for fear of falling into the lake. What do you think the word venture means? It's a verb. He didn't want to go out. To venture out means to go out. It's kind of part of the word adventure. But it's just the venture part of the word. Venture out means to go out. Somebody didn't want to. Now, if we were going to a place like this, what would we need to know before we go there? How we're going to get there, for sure. Are we going to fly in a plane, or is a helicopter going to drop us out, or are we going to parachute in, or are we going to hike there, or are we going to take a train, or what are we going to do? Also, you'd want to know the weather. I mean, what time of year is it? Are we going to expect blizzards, or is it going to be kind of warm? We'd need to know those types of things. How would the weather and transportation affect what we would take if we were, packing to go? Obviously, the type of clothes that we're going to take, right? How much we can take, even how it's packed. If you're going out there, you wouldn't want to take everything in your bedroom, would you? Kind of be hard to get it up there in that tundra, don't you think? What problems do you think you would encounter as a result of the long winters and the frozen ground? Food might be hard to come by, you think? I mean, you'd have to be able to kill a bear, and not just kill it, but you'd have to know how to tend to it and skin it and cut it up, and then you'd have to know how to preserve the meat. And even that, killing a bear is not just quite that easy, I wouldn't think. What about building a house with the ground frozen? Almost impossible. You have to really think about that. So traveling by dog sled, how is that? I mean, what are some differences that is compared to how we travel? When you get in the truck or the car or the van, you cut on the air conditioner or the heat. Sometimes you roll the window. I love to ride with the windows rolled down. If it's really hot, I don't. Or if my hair's fixed and I don't want to get it messed up, I don't. But I do like that. But riding on a dog sled, well, obviously you're going to be in the snow, so you're going to be bundled up. And I'm sure it takes a lot of muscle to keep those things where they need to go. Let's take a look at this map. Just want to show you a little bit about where we are. Now, all this that's colored is Canada. It all belongs to Canada. Here's Alaska. It belongs to the United States. Okay, here's some more of the United States up in here. Here's the Great Lakes, all of the United States. Greenland belongs to Denmark. So here's everything that's Canada. Now these big places here, these are called territories. Here is the Yukon. It's right near Alaska. It's between Canada and Alaska. Okay? All right. Now let me go back to the next screen. Okay, let's get your book out and turn to page 51. We're going to be reading a story today called Yukon Trail. It's a two-part story, so we're going to start it today and then we'll finish it tomorrow. So let's look at page 51. Look at the name of the story, Yukon Trail. Well, now you've looked at a map. You know where it's located. You know the setting. At least you know what Yukon means and where it's at, right? You know kind of what it looks like. Never been there, but you've seen pictures of it. Well, maybe you've been there. I don't know. Maybe you've been to the Yukon. If you have, I'd like to know about it. All right. So we are going to read pages 51 all the way to 55. Okay? Now, I'm going to read this section. Okay? Now, tomorrow, you're going to read silently the next part. Okay? But I'll read the first part of this story. But as I read, remember there's two things. You need to follow along with me. If you need to use a bookmark or something, just make sure you follow along where I'm reading so that you can read with me in your head. Okay? Also, as I'm reading, I want you to find out how Steve, our character, how he chooses to travel to the Yukon and what happens while Steve travels to the Yukon. Okay, those are things we're thinking of. How was he traveling and what happened as he was traveling? Let's read. The first part of this is called Mush. Under the lowering Alaskan sky, young Steve Woodford stepped from the train at the snow-covered outpost of Nenana. He looked anxiously around for his Uncle Jim, the famous flying doctor of the Yukon, of whom he had boasted so much at the orphanage. For years he had dreamed of going to the Yukon. Now he was on his way and he was happy. He was going to have a real home and belong to a real family. He hoped Uncle Jim and Aunt Bess would like him. The young Indian who came up grinning couldn't have been over 16. "You're Steve?" he asked in perfect English. "Well, I'm Sam Ketchum. I've got a letter for you. There's been a lot of sickness up in the Yukon and your uncle couldn't fly down for you." Steve's heart sank as he took the letter. It was short. Uncle Jim wrote about how busy he was and that he might not be able to fly down for 2 or 3 weeks. "Sam Ketchum is a young Indian guide who works for me," the letter went on. "I've told him to make you comfortable at the hotel. In a day or 2, he will be starting back for the Yukon with my new dog team. You could go with him if you wish, but I would not advise you to do so. It is a 350-mile mush through wilderness and tundra, and it would be a hardship for a boy accustomed to the soft life of civilization." Steve read the letter several times at the hotel. It disturbed him that his uncle should think that he was soft. When he joined Sam for a dinner of venison roast, he said, "I wanted to come up here last year, Sam, but Uncle Jim wouldn't let me. He wrote that I was too young. He said that the Yukon was a man's country and it was no place for a boy. So he made me wait a year and now he thinks I'm soft. I'm going to show him, Sam. I'm going with you and the dog team." Sam laughed. "It won't be easy," he warned, "but you have to learn about dogs sometime if you're going to be of any help to your uncle. We'll start at dawn." It frightened Steve to think of the trip when he went to bed. He had never seen the big sled dogs. Some were part wolf and said to be dangerous. It was still dark when the hotel man came with a set of fur breeches and a hooded parka, fur boots, and a fur sleeping bag. Sam was waiting for him at the sled with 11 mighty huskies straining at their harnesses, anxious to be off. "Better meet some of your dogs," Sam said. "This first one, your leader, is Mutt. He's been to the Yukon before and he knows the trail." The tawny big brute lowered its head and watched Steve with suspicion. Steve fought down his fear and leaned over to pet the dog. Its fangs bared in a snarl. "Not too close," Sam warned. "Mutt doesn't know you yet, and you'd better stay clear of Cougar, this big Malamute. He's a real troublemaker." "Why is the sled tied to a tree?" Steve asked. "Because otherwise they'd be off like a flash and we couldn't stop them," Sam explained. He pointed to an iron rod suspended above the ground at the rear of the sled. It looked like a narrow rake. "That's your brake. You step on it and the prongs dig into the snow and stop the sled." They packed and Steve got on top of the sled. "Hold on," Sam warned as he untied the rope from the tree. The dogs were off, 11 big brutes, harnessed in pairs except for Mutt, who took the lead. They raced over the snow in full gallop. The sled bounced and flew, and it took all Steve's strength to hold on. Standing on the runners in back, Sam gave a hearty laugh. "Dogs are always wild to get started. They'll soon slow down." They did. For hours they went, skirting great slopes of spruce and Norway pine, and on into the still white wilderness. At midday they stopped for a few minutes' rest and a bite to eat. "Now you drive," suggested Sam. "I'll run behind for a while to get warm, but whatever you do, don't fall off the sled. You'll not be able to stop the dogs, and you'll lose them and the sled and all your food. It's not a good way to die." Steve leaped on the runners. "Get going!" he shouted. Mutt turned his head and looked at him, but nothing happened. "Holler mush," Sam suggested. "When you want to go right, holler gee, and for left, up, and swing the sled around corners so it doesn't tip." Steve nodded. "Mush!" he screamed. "It worked!" He stood proudly on the runners. He was driving a dog team. There was real work to it, he soon discovered. Keeping the sled upright at curves was tricky, and he had to be careful to avoid stumps and rocks that might smash the sled. On the downslopes, he stood on the brake to keep from running over the dogs, but suddenly it happened. He made the mistake of looking back too long at Sam, who was jogging half a mile behind him. He hit a slope and his feet slipped from the runners, but he held on, dragging as the sled gathered speed downhill until it pushed the dogs into a wild, scrambled heap. Then the sled tipped. It started one of the wildest dogfights Steve had ever seen. Each seemed to be blaming the others for what had happened, and they snarled and slashed with white-fanged fury. "Stop them! Stop them!" Sam yelled. Steve stood frozen with fear. He didn't move. He didn't dare venture close. And that's all. Don't look anymore. We'll have to do the rest tomorrow and see what happens. Now, let's go back to the first page that we read, page 51. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions just to make sure you were paying attention and you know everything that's going on, okay? Now, what does Uncle Jim think of Steve? That he's soft. He's a soft boy from... What do you think that means? Kind of a girly boy? Or just kind of not used to hard work, maybe? I don't know. Something like that. What's Steve trying to prove to his uncle by choosing to mush? That he's not soft. He's trying to prove to him that he's not soft. Is Steve obeying his Uncle Jim? Well, he's not disobeying. He just didn't take good counsel because his uncle didn't say he couldn't. He just advised him not to. He said, I wouldn't if I were you, but he left the decision up to him. So he wasn't being disobedient, but he didn't take his uncle's wise counsel. Why is it important that Steve learn about those dogs? Sam said if he's going to stay there and help his uncle, he's got to learn about them, right? Exactly. Do you think Steve will be able to survive on the mush? Why? Why do you say that? Look on page 53. Do you see the last paragraph where it says not too close, Sam? Remember he was trying to pet that dog and Sam goes, ooh, you better not get too close. Can you read that, how you think Sam said that? Not too close. He could have yelled it, or maybe he said, not too close. I don't know, but he was giving a warning to him, wasn't he? Yes, he was. How does the author let us know the dogs run fast? When he's on the sled, he's bouncing and moving and flying and whoa, going crazy on there. What warning does Sam give Steve about the dog sled? He says, do not fall off. Look at page 54. Can you find the paragraph where Sam is warning him about that? He says, I think it's, let's see. Let's see. Where did it go? I don't know where he said it, but he said, read the paragraph where he says, do not fall off. Maybe it was on it's on this page, isn't it? Do you see it? Oh yeah, where it says, now you drive. You see that paragraph? Okay, I want you to read where it says, now you drive. I want you to read that paragraph down to where it says, it's not a good way to die. You read that paragraph out loud like you think Sam was telling him. Did you sound something like this? Now you drive, suggested Sam. I'll run behind for a while to get warm, but whatever you do, don't fall off the sled. You'll not be able to stop the dogs, and you'll lose them, and the sled, and all your food, and it's not a good way to die. You think he said it kind of like that? I bet that's how you said it. All right, now, what causes the sled to tip? He was looking back at his buddy, and he didn't pay attention where he was going, and he hit a slope, and it tipped over. And they were having the dogs, they all kind of like this. Do you see on page 55 where it says it started one of the wildest dog fights? Okay, that paragraph, all the way down to where it says white-fanged fury, just that little tiny paragraph. I want you to say that paragraph like you were telling this happened to one of your friends. Can you read it out loud like you're telling one of your friends about it? All right, good job. Now let me ask you a question. I need you to close your reader book and set it aside. Do you think Steve is going to learn how to handle the dogs? I don't think he's soft. He's inexperienced. He doesn't know. It would be just like me getting on a tractor. I could probably do it, but I'm inexperienced. I've not done it but maybe once in my life, and it was when I was a little girl. So it's the same thing with him. He's not soft. He's not scared of it. He didn't know what to do. He's inexperienced. So we'll have to wait and find out tomorrow if he's going to learn. Okay, you have a work text page today. Would you get that out for me? It's just one page. It's page 21 in your work text book. Page 21. Now, at the top it says to color the circle beside the correct answer. Now I'm going to have you do this yourself. I'm going to give you a grade on this page. Okay, so you're just going to find the right answers. All right, and at the bottom, you see that dog sled right there in the middle, and there's words on there. You're going to use those words to fill in the blanks down here at the bottom, okay? And then I'll give you a grade on that. All right, that's all for today.